Good morning, everybody. Dr. Liang, should we wait for more people or what is our consensus here?
How about the 3 more minutes?
3 more minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, everybody, let's start at 9:05 a.m.
Okay, 9:05.
Will you be recording this or starting the recording again?
Yeah, I did it. Yeah, I already stopped. So.
Oh, you've already started the recording. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dakila Ledesma. Everyone may call me Dax. Before I start this, I would like to say that one, this is a Python bootcamp with the assumption of no prior knowledge in programming. So this is starting from the very start. This is starting from I know how to get to Google and download things. Secondly, in any time during this bootcamp, feel free to unmute yourself and interrupt me if you have any questions, or if you think that I've glossed over something that needs more explanations. I'm perfectly fine with people interrupting me for questions. So before we get started, as I said, we're starting from the very beginning. So I'll be going ahead and showing you how to get Python set up in the first place. Hopefully everyone can see this fairly nondescript Windows background. This is Windows Sandbox, so this represents a new computer. Go ahead and open any web browser that you have, and what you would like to do is, using any search engine, search for Anaconda Python, and you should be able to see a few links that lead to anaconda.com. Regardless of which link you click, there should be a download button, or under products, click individual edition. Then click download, and you should be sent to Anaconda installers. We're using Anaconda as a quote unquote backend. Now, it's not a Python interpreter per se, but it's a collection of programs that allow us to use Python as an interpreter, and it comes with several helpful libraries that you'll need anyway for this bootcamp. So the installation process is similar for Windows and Mac OS. However, if you're using Linux, you'd want to download your installer, and then you'd want to chmod +x the file so that you can execute it. Go ahead and download the Windows graphical installer, and you can go ahead and click Run here. I'm pretty sure I already have it installed. So I shall go ahead and show you what the installer looks like. Okay. Ooh. Let's just go ahead and download this then, because unfortunately, it doesn't seem like I haven't downloaded. Essentially, you'd open the installer and you'd go through the entire rundown. However, what I'd like for everyone to do is essentially, if you're on Windows, install it as a user rather than for all users. That's the only thing that's different. And then once you get it installed, I'll show that later, you should be able to search for Anaconda prompt in your Windows taskbar. And Dr. Liang sent the link in chat. You should be able to get to this point through the installer. So essentially run the installer and then go through the motions and then get to Anaconda prompt through your start menu. So here's what the installer looks like. Click next, click I agree. And here, click just me. And you should be able to click next all the way through the end and you should be fine. Like I said, after that, just go ahead and open Anaconda prompt. So while people are doing that, I'm going to go through a very, very brief rundown of what Python is. So what is Python? And normally many programming languages start with the paradigm or the type of discipline or whatever. I'm not going to go through this only because I feel like it's not within the scope of the bootcamp. And most of the time when people talk about this, it flies over people's heads. What's most important about Python, here's a code snippet of like flood flagging using OpenCV. The most important thing about Python are two things. One, that it's separated mostly by white space. And two, it's dynamically typed. So there's no type declaration. If we compare it to C#, as you can see, C# uses brackets, and then there's type declaration through var here, and all of the lines are ending using semicolons. If you don't quite understand what the difference is between these two, or why brackets are important, or why white space is important, or what dynamic typing is, don't worry. You don't need to know the differences. But for the people who are already familiar with something like C# or Java, it may be important to take note of this difference. So Python is pretty much one of the most popular programming languages currently being used. It's the most popular, especially for learning programming. According to Octaverse, so the graph on your right, according to GitHub's Octaverse report, Python is now the second most used programming language within GitHub. And most of that can be attributed to machine learning and deep learning, as well as the influx of data science. And whilst many of you may think, okay, this may be a little too much for me, don't worry, because Python is actually one of the best starting languages that people can get into, mainly because of how easy it is to understand versus other programming languages. And this programming language, Python, can lead you to more disruptive parts of programming, such as neural networks, for which it is currently at the forefront of this discipline. So that's the end of the very quick summary of what Python is. It's easy to read, it's easy to understand, it's a great starting point, but it has differences to other programming languages. So let's get started. So as I've said, I wanted you to get to a point where you would see something like this, your Anaconda prompt. Now, this may look a little nuanced at first. Let me just clear this. When you open your Anaconda PowerShell prompt, just go ahead and type gpyter notebook. And it will go ahead and run something and lead you to here. So it'll lead you to this screen in which you'll see a file explorer of many different folders. What I'd then like you to do is go ahead and go to github.com, and I would like you guys to download the Python Bootcamp files. So I'll be sharing this link through Python Bootcamp, or through Zoom, sorry. And you should be able to see that in chat. It's github.com/iconbioutc/Python Bootcamp. It currently contains all of the files you'll need to follow along with the tutorial. Now, that being said, if you don't want to follow along, or you're watching from a tablet which doesn't have a Python interpreter, feel free, you don't need to download these files, but it may be helpful if you're following along, trying to take notes, etc. The reason why it's fairly important is because when we go back here to what gpyter notebook sent us to, you can go ahead and go to your downloaded files, and you'll see the exact same files as you see in GitHub. And then you can open the iCompBio Python introduction.ipy notebook. Again, if you're downloading something or if you're struggling to keep up, feel free to interrupt me. As you can see, this is an entire notebook filled with all sorts of notes for Python programming. This was written by Caleb and I. Caleb is a collaborator of mine within the Dr. Shah's lab. And we created this notebook in order to help ease people into programming in Python. One thing that's particularly jarring for most programmers
Dex, we cannot hear you now. Are your internet stable or? Hello?